What's up, party people? Welcome to ChatGPT Unleashed, the podcast with one episode. I am the host, Brian Kelly, and this is my special guest, Xander J. Moore.
Both of our podcasts, but I'm happy to be here.
I don't know about that one. So what's up, man? ChatGPT, right?
So today we're basically talking about academic dishonesty through the use of AI tools like ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT is pretty cool. I asked it to write an intro for this podcast, but it was like 4 paragraphs long, so I didn't do it. But I kind of wish I did.
Yeah. So there are a lot of different ways you can use AI to help you with school. It can basically generate you paragraphs for essays. It can answer just about any question you ask it. And it's different from Google, where when you Google something, it gives you a list of sources that will help you answer that. Where with ChatGPT, it'll just give you an answer in human speak.
It's also nice because you can ask like follow-up questions, which is nice for utility, but I guess also cheating. Because I don't know. I guess if you're cheating, but you don't exactly get the answer you're looking for, you can be like, oh well, no, that's not what I meant, and it can help you out there. I asked ChatGPT to explain itself in the third person, like it's a Wikipedia article. And it said, ChatGPT is a state-of-the-art language model developed by OpenAI, trained on a massive corpus of text data. ChatGPT is designed to generate natural language responses to a wide variety of prompts and queries. And then there are 4 more paragraphs. But I think that pretty much covers most of it.
Yeah, that's a good summary of it. Basically, it's made to be able to answer any question you have and just generally make your life easier, sort of like Google. But the difference is that it's a lot easier to cheat with. So if you want to cheat, you definitely can use it for that, but it's not designed for that.
I didn't even think about the fact that like people aren't too concerned about like Google for cheating when Google's almost the same thing. You can ask it questions or you can cheat.
Right, yeah.
Man, I really didn't think about that.
But it's a super useful resource. It's important to note that it's not designed to be used for cheating. It can give you like ways to try to fix the problem, but it's not able to tell you I'm not supposed to be used for schoolwork. It'll tell you that if you ask it that you're not supposed to use it for schoolwork, but it doesn't have any way to detect if you're using it for schoolwork.
Yeah, unless you say unless you tell it that. Actually, I wonder if I tell it that I'm trying to cheat, will it tell me not to?
Probably. But otherwise, ChatGPT, we've already explained it pretty well, I think. It can give you like entire paragraphs about a topic, which is one thing Google can't exactly do because it'll plagiarize. But
Xander, what's a thesis you've had for a research paper before?
Educational video games are a better means of education than the traditional essays.
It's actually a pretty cool research paper. I should read that. Okay, no, so I told it that I wanted to write the paper so I can cheat in English class, and it said no.
Right, yeah, I figured it would. But specifically, how successful are the resources? I think any use of ChatGPT can show pretty well how effective it is. You ask it just about any question and it'll do its best to answer it. It does have a few limitations that can affect how well you can use it for that, in that it has a certain limit of knowledge. Like it only knows up to, I want to say, the middle of 2021. So if you're doing a paper about modern issues, it probably won't be able to help you as much there. Unless it's about something like ChatGPT, then it knows a lot about that.
Well, I would hope so. Yeah. No, it's pretty weird how sometimes like it'll be really accurate up to a point. One thing to consider is the what is it? The knowledge cutoff. I guess like it doesn't know anything past the year 2021. Right. But also like it doesn't know. One thing is it can write code. That's one thing I've been using it the most for, is writing code. And it can't write in every language. In some languages it's better in, like it can write in C++ and C# really well, but like GD script it cannot do. It's so bad at that. And sometimes it just gets details wrong. Like I was trying to compare it to some of my research papers by giving it similar theses, my last research paper I wrote, which was a really bad paper because of how specific the topic was, and I couldn't find any sources. It was a left-hand traditional grip on a marching snare drum, and it didn't know what that was, and so it wrote a paper full of inaccurate information, which was pretty funny to me. But it just shows, like, I don't know. I guess it's not perfect, but it's more perfect than anything else, maybe, just depending on what specifically you're trying to do.
Right. There definitely is a barrier of it's not this good, but it's definitely a tool that can be used for supplemental means. But moving on, I tried to think of how we could like solve this issue. I was reading a source about ChatGPT called the ChatGPT Revolution, and it's basically about school librarians and what they can do with ChatGPT. And they said, what can school librarians do with ChatGPT? They went right to the source and asked the chatbot, how can school librarians use ChatGPT? And with that idea in mind, I thought if we can just ask ChatGPT how to solve the problem, then it might have some valuable insights. And I think you've done the same thing, right?
Yeah. Although while I've got it here, I'm going to go ahead and ask it again so I can see a verbatim response.
ChatGPT.
Cool.
There are a few things it'll give you. It'll give you I got like 3 responses. The first one, which isn't super effective, is just clear communication about expectations and policies about academic integrity, which obviously
just telling the students not to cheat.
Which obviously could have some effectiveness, but if a student is cheating, there's a certain level of where they're probably willing to disobey expectations.
I don't know about that. Every time I've been caught cheating, my teacher said, don't do that. I stopped instantly. Good part. So it gave me here 5 responses rather than the usual 3. Although they might just be duplicates. I've got communicate expectations, which is what you were talking about. Use technology like plagiarism detection, which I'll get into later. Encourage collaboration, personalized feedback. Okay, so the first one and the 5th one are the same. They're just like, don't do that. And then the 3rd and 4th one are pretty much the same, which I think is the best one, but I'm thinking we'll get to that later.
Yeah. So generally, we have a few solutions that we can definitely use. So which one do you want to start with?
I don't know. I guess like the plagiarism detection and using technology itself would be interesting to you.
It's definitely, there is some effectiveness to it. There are definitely ways you can check if they use ChatGPT. They're just not foolproof.
I don't think I agree with that at all. Like I haven't seen a single plagiarism checker that can really. Well, I guess unless you're copying verbatim text without citing it, I don't think any of those sources actually work. But ChatGPT isn't plagiarism. It's still ChatGPT is writing it, originally. You're just not using your own work, which makes it plagiarism. But a plagiarism detector wouldn't detect ChatGPT only if you copied and pasted from an article.
Right.
But even the plagiarism detectors can't even tell if you cited it correctly. At least, honestly, you could probably use ChatGPT as a plagiarism checker.
Probably.
I'm going to try this.
Is it able to detect if it generated text? Is what I would ask. Not ask it, but check. But you have our...
Okay, so I asked the greatest English teacher of all time and host of the Bumblebee Baddies podcast, Miss Ashley Gray, and I said, what is ChatGPT? And her verbatim response was, it is an AI used for cheating. And so I was like, all right. I don't know. I've never heard somebody describe it purely as just an AI for cheating. So
it's not explicitly designed for cheating. But
yeah.
I guess if you're a teacher and most of what you hear about it is that students can use it to cheat, then that's kind of what fills your brain.
Yeah. So I can see that being valid. So I said, is that the intended purpose? And she said, I don't know. So that's pretty useful, I guess. I asked her if she felt that her job was threatened by it, because one thing I've also noticed is that, I use ChatGPT to write code, right? And it's not that I'm trying to steal code, it's that I don't know how to do a thing with the code, so I want ChatGPT to help me out. And, that got me thinking, why can't ChatGPT be the teacher? Honestly, I put one of my math problems into it, and it had, it solved the math problem, but then he also explained it step by step so that I knew how to do it. Um, Not that Mr. Boswell's a bad teacher, I just didn't really pay attention, but but like no, it brings up a point, right? Like if ChatGPT could be doing all our work for us, couldn't it be also just teaching us how to do the things, right? So I can see how somebody, especially because nowadays we're so worried about like robots taking our places and our jobs and all that. Like I think in Denver they released a fully autonomous McDonald's, like no employees. Um,
Oh boy.
yeah, but I can see teachers, maybe feeling threatened by that. So I said, "Is your job threatened by it?" And she said, "Absolutely not." I'm like, all right, cool. So how can we stop, cheating with ChatGPT? And she said, her verbatim sentence was, "They are working on a program." In retrospect, I probably should have asked who they is, because although I don't even think she knows. But um, the main thing I've been worried about is like these programs actually working, right? Oh, right. I asked her, "What do you know about the program?" And she said, "I have absolutely no clue." um, so then I asked her. I think one thing that's really scary is the idea that like a program won't work right. Just like how ChatGPT is not perfect, a detector might not be perfect, and then we get falsely accused of using AI tools. So I asked Miss Gray if she would have 100% faith in a program if it said that a student was cheating, and she did say no, which does comfort me a little bit that teachers would at least, I don't know, be open to the idea that it's wrong, but it's still a scary idea to even rely on it at all, because I've done a little bit of testing with this. I wonder if I have the screenshot saved on here. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So, I used there are a bunch of different websites that claim to detect ChatGPT used something. One of them was writer.com. For writer.com, I have written 2 history research papers. So I opened up 4 tabs with Writer AI, and 2 of them I pasted excerpts from my research papers that I wrote. Then I had ChatGPT write research papers with the same thesis statement, and I pasted the corresponding excerpts into the other 2 tabs of Writer AI, and so I had 2 research papers, one about the Russian Revolution and one about the Holocaust. For my Russian Revolution research paper, it said that mine was 26% human-generated content, right? That's a pretty low score.
And that's the one you made.
That's the one I made. And then it said an AI was 33% human-generated content. Now, the AI, 33 is a pretty low score, right? So one could say that, oh, it got the AI, but it's also a higher score than mine. So it thinks the AI is more real than mine. Now, for the Holocaust, I guess I didn't do my Holocaust research paper. I did my snare drum traditional grip research paper, which was pretty bad. But that one, it did say that mine was 95% human-generated content when I actually wrote it. Maybe because it was so bad that it didn't think an AI could write it. But and then it did give the AI a 78%, which is 78% is still a really good score. So like that's a little scary.
So yeah, very inconsistent results.
I used one. I don't remember what this website was called, but it's a GPT-2 output detector, which I guess I didn't even think about it, but we're on GPT-3 right now. And so this one, the grade it gave was like a percentage of real stuff, right, and then a percentage of fake. So, trying to think of which one I wrote because I didn't label these ones. No, this one is pretty poorly worded. I definitely wrote this one. So it did say that mine was 82% real, and that ChatGPT's was 0.04% real. So that seems promising, right? I got an 82, and ChatGPT didn't even get a whole percent. But then it said that so then ChatGPT's for the next one, for the snare drum one, right? But one important thing I think to note is that here the sentence it has is snare drum traditional grip, also known as matched grip, which I guess nobody would know, but matched grip and traditional grip are not the same thing, so that's just straight up false information. It gave it a 1.92 score, right? Which is bad. But then it gave me a 0.09 score. Which is like just as bad as the first one I got with ChatGPT. So like this one seems promising from the start, right? Because it worked really good at first, but then even though ChatGPT did get a really bad score, it still did better than me on this one. So it's still not consistent. Then we got this one, detector.dng.ai. And this one, I think this is another one, the higher percentage, the better, or is it? I don't know. And this one, let's see, what did it do? This one gave me a 66, and it gave ChatGPT a 100. Oh, okay, no. So the lower the score, the better. That's what it is. So, that seems pretty good. That 66% of mine is like maybe, and by maybe it means definitely it was written by AI, but 66%. I guess that's not horrible. And ChatGPT got a 100%, right? That I guess seems promising. And then this one, I think this is the. Yeah, okay, this is the ChatGPT one. And it does give it a 100% again. But, and then the next one I have got a 0. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, so 100% 0. And it was correct, right? That's pretty promising. So I tested it a third time with my Holocaust paper, and, okay, yeah, so this is where it gets pretty bad, is that mine got a 10% in ChatGPT's. Oh, wait, no, lower is better, right? Yeah, so I got a 10%, ChatGPT got a 92. So I guess this detector.dng is the most reliable so far, but like it's still given me pretty high scores, right? Because this time ChatGPT didn't get a 100, and there was that one time that I got a 66, which that's still, even though it's a little more consistent, it's still a little scary. And so that's my thing, is like I just don't think that these tools can be trusted completely like that.
Right. I definitely don't think that that's our most promising solution. But going back to your source teacher, you mentioned how we can use ChatGPT, like, not exactly to replace teachers, but one way you can use them is to supplement your education if you don't completely understand something.
Yeah, like
and
a tutor.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good solution, is encouraging students to use it more to help gain a better understanding than to, I don't know how to put it, do the work for you. Instead of doing the work for you, it should be helping you to do the work.
Yeah, but I don't know that it can show you how to do the work. Well, okay, no, but even if it shows you how to do it and then gives you the answer, it's still teaching you how to do it. How can you teach him not to do it without giving you the answer? Unless it uses an example problem, but then it's not really helping that much.
I'm not saying you would use it on like a test. It would be like on a homework.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, that's how I've used ChatGPT for math. Was I used it to not do a homework. I used it for one question on a homework because I didn't get it, and it did a pretty good job.
Right. If you don't want your students to do it with the homework, then you can just provide example.
Be a better teacher. No, I'm just playing.
You can just provide example problems for them to do that are made to be watched. We're going to talk about the next solution.
Oh, right. Okay, so ChatGPT, it wrote it 2 times, kind of. So, oh, okay, wait, real quick. Before we really get there, I forgot. I was going to see if I heard somewhere that you can use ChatGPT as a ChatGPT detector, which makes sense in theory. But let's see. I'm telling it that I'm a teacher, and I think my student used ChatGPT to write this paper. I copy and paste it. Can you detect the use of ChatGPT? Let's see. Now it's giving me an explanation of how I might be able to detect it. I'm like, that's not what I asked you. It claims that it's not able to detect it at all, but it's telling me that I might be able to. But I'm just gonna copy and paste it anyway and be like, did a student? Wait. Okay, so I pasted a part of my paper, that I wrote for my history class to see if it could, you know, to see if it could detect, see if it was a false positive. And it said, I did not write this text. It contains some factual errors, such as stating that the Soviet Union started in 1992, which is incorrect. I guess instead of 1922, I accidentally wrote 1992, but that was like the sole reason that it says it makes several unsupported claims about the causes of the Soviet Union, such as attributing its creation solely to World War. It's like, hey man, your paper sucks. I didn't write this. It's like the whole point of the paper was that my thesis is being proven by me. Does it understand?
So, in terms of the biggest solution we have, you want to talk about that?
Yes. We got to change the school system. School system, altogether is pretty bad. The problem is that, it's designed, I don't know, it's just designed for an older time, right? We've adapted everything as time has gone on. We've adapted, dude, I don't know, what has changed over time?
I mean, just about everything, especially with technology.
No, but what's a standard that's changed? I don't know, the election?
Laws change all the time.
Oh, okay. So that's a really good example, right? So laws. So stealing things used to be a felony if they were over, I think I think it was like $400 or $500, something like that. Like if something was more than $500, it was a felony to steal it. But see, that was made a really, really long time ago when $500 was the cost of like a house. So, now if you steal a PS5, or at least if you had stolen a PS5, you would have, committed a felony. But see, because of inflation, we updated the law. We raised the amount. I don't remember. Yeah, so I think the school system has been outdated for a decent amount of time, but I just think this ChatGPT thing is a good reason to, I don't know, it's a good reason to go ahead and be a little more proactive about it, I guess, because ChatGPT, it's certainly a lot more powerful than everything else we have, and I don't know, the school system overall just is outdated. I think people haven't really been acknowledging it that much until the ChatGPT thing, but it's been an issue for a while. The school system is so based on memorization, which I think does matter for some things. But my history teacher, Mr. Dees, he's made a point to change that, not do the same thing that other teachers are doing. In fact, he's getting in a lot of trouble with the district about that. But he pointed out that memorizing things is useless because if you want to know who the 14th president is, you can just ask somebody that. In fact, do you know who the 14th president is, Andrew? Hey Siri, who's the 14th president?
Rewind. So knowledge like that is so commonplace that if you need to know it, then you can just look it up. And I cannot think of a situation where I did not have access to something like Google where I needed it.
No, exactly. We always point out how it's useless to memorize all the presidents, and while that's an argument for another day, it's especially useless considering that I can just look up anything. And I think that's one problem, that I've been talking about, with colleges, right? Is that, in college, you really only go to college to get the degree. You wanted the education. Harvard's computer science classes are online for free. If you want to learn computer science at Harvard, you can just do it. But you're not going to have a fancy diploma that says Harvard University, right? And I mean, there's the whole thing of like Googling things. ChatGPT, like I said, could be the teacher, right? I don't even really need to be in school to learn facts because ChatGPT can give them to me. The example I always love to throw it is that like in elementary school, your math teacher would always say, "You're not going to have a calculator in the grocery store," but we totally do. I bet Xander always uses a calculator in the grocery store.
So, basically, I think one thing, we asked ChatGPT about this, and this was one of its solutions that it had proposed, is that you need to have a more engaging education where it's something that will be benefiting you, like a project or something. Project learning has always been more effective to me specifically because it feels more worthwhile.
Oh yeah, no, like in our computer science class, where instead of just saying, "Oh, well, an if statement does this," we have to make a battleship game,
right?
Which we did do and finish today. But like that's awesome, right? We just made something and we get to like see it working. We get to be proud of it. And although sometimes when I'm coding for my personal use, but that's one thing is also like, I don't know. I guess I'm getting into the wrong argument here, but it's like, why does it matter in the job force, right? I know a guy who kind of I forget what he does exactly. He kind of works for like marketing or whatever, but part of his job is every now and then he'll need to make a website, and so he has ChatGPT make the website by coding in HTML with ChatGPT. It's like if he can do that on the job, why can't I do it in school? Which I guess that's not the point, right? So I get that. Like I said, that's probably the wrong argument. But I don't know. I just think there's a lot of problems with the school system, but the main one is just being outdated. Memorization does not work, and project-based learning, like you said, I think that's one of the stronger suits. Like chemistry, in our chemistry, or I guess science in general. Science in general is pretty easy to do projects on. Just do a lab. We do that all the time. Math is the only one that I would struggle with a little bit. I remember we did a project in 6th grade that was math related, but I don't remember how we did that. But math, like, I don't know, even English I think would work, or computer science class works. History, I mean, Mr. Dees is doing a great job. I love that guy. But math is the only one that I think would really be tough to apply project learning stuff to, because how is he going to test math knowledge other than just knowing how to do it, right?
Right. That's a little bit more of an advanced. Like, they already are a little bit ahead of everyone else in that they are putting it into practice.
Who?
Math.
Oh.
I think the subject of math, I think, is a lot easier to test the knowledge while putting it into practice instead of just putting it into, oh, you remember this. Even though a lot of math is sort of memorization, it's a lot more skill.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, like I said I think this is still probably the wrong point, but like, why does it matter? In real life, you have a calculator.
Right, I guess. But this kind of feels like a side tangent. Like, it kind of seems like we're arguing a different point. But this is all still related to ChatGPT. Because if you can use ChatGPT to do all of this so easily, then it kind of just proves the issue. I don't know how to say that thing.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's just, it's a problem. The school system, I figure changes need to occur. The problem is just what kind of changes we make. Saying that we need to change the school system, I think it's been said plenty of times, but it's a lot easier said than done, certainly. But no, I think project-based learning is a good thing. ChatGPT, what did it say? It said, encourage collaboration. Instead of focusing solely on individual performance, educators can encourage collaborative learning and teamwork. This can reduce the temptation to cheat and promote a culture of academic integrity. Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. I haven't heard ChatGPT say that specifically. I've heard it say project-based learning plenty of times, but that's one thing I didn't exactly think about was like collaboration and working together. But if every kid is set on using ChatGPT, I guess that doesn't entirely help. Um,
Right, but I think team-based projects are really useful, especially when you're talking about helping with the job field. You a lot of stuff that needs to be done with group projects helps a lot in the future, a lot more than say a memorization-based test.
yeah, no. Although I figure if we're going to find out solutions, why not use the best source in the world? Maybe this is cheating, but it's not. ChatGPT, what's up, man? ChatGPT is really the guest on this episode, above Xander, but so I'm telling it that we got to change the school system. What was the yeah? Sure, you just mad because I said ChatGPT was a more important guest. All right, so I'm saying, in order to stop academic dishonesty using ChatGPT, we must change the school system. How could we change it to prevent academic dishonesty using ChatGPT even option? All right, see, that's the thing is like with project-based learning, ChatGPT, depending on the subject, isn't even an option, right? Like with science, if you're doing a lab, you can't have ChatGPT do the lab for you. But then, like in computer science, when we make that battleship script, we can have it write the script for us. So it's like almost better, but still not entirely. But then Mr. D's class, it's also not really an option because he doesn't really test us on things. He just teaches us things, kind of hopes we learn it. I think he's kind of understanding of like, if we don't want to learn it, we're not going to learn it. But, you know, that's a topic for another day. All right, let's see what we got here. Give me 6 options. Changing the school system is a complex task, but there are several steps that can be taken to prevent academic dishonesty using ChatGPT as an option. All right, let's see. Focus on learning, not grades. See, that is a good one. Shout out to our English professor for saying grades are bad. It's kind of sucks that at the end of the semester we will get a grade, but, you know, that's the state of Kentucky for you. What are you going to do? Anyway, so it says the school system should prioritize learning over grades. This can be achieved by moving away from high-stakes testing and focusing more on formative assessment and feedback. No, that's a good idea right there, right? Like Mr. D's does. If you prove that you're learning things, then ChatGPT becomes useless because ChatGPT can't make you learn. It can only, well, okay, I guess it can make you learn.
But using it to make you learn is good.
Yeah, but if the teachers are focusing on making you learn, then there's no point, right? So it's rendered pointless because kids aren't using it for, I guess it's not dishonest if you're using it to learn, but they're not using it to learn, they're using it for answers, right? You know, if you use it to write a research paper and submit it, you're not learning about the topic, you're just submitting a paper that you didn't write.
Right.
So that, I think this is good. I think it still allows for a few spots for ChatGPT to be used, but overall, that's a really good one. Any other thoughts on that one?
Making sure that it's based on learning. Like you said, ChatGPT can't make you learn, per se. But, like, using it as a learning tool is how you should be using it. So if you're using it to help you learn, then that's basically what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And is what it's made to be used for.
So this next one says teach ethics and integrity. See, that's not changing the school system, man. It's just saying, tell your kids not to do that. When students understand the importance of academic integrity, they are less likely to cheat. Per chance, but I don't know how true that is. Personalized learning. Personalized learning can help academic dishonesty by engaging students in their own learning. Do you have any idea what that means? When students have choice and agency in their learning, they're more motivated to learn. That's likely to cheat. I guess it's saying like let the kids do what they want, but I don't think that's really true. I don't know.
think
I guess like I would be less likely to cheat in a class that I actually wanted to be in. I heard about this one school in Asia, where the kids learn like they choose their classes completely, and as long as I forget, it's like a country where the academic rules aren't as um, t- I guess aren't as specific as ours, where it's like you need 4 math credits, you need 3 science credits, all that stuff, right? Um, but basically, they choose the classes they want to take, right? The ones they think will be fun, and because they're enjoying their classes, they don't do bad and they don't cheat. And I guess that's one thing, like because I think we can be honest. I don't want to be in high school, but I do want to do computer science, and because of that, I would be way less likely to cheat my computer science class because I actually want to learn the code. I find it interesting. I think it's fun. Whereas like math, not that I do cheat, I do not cheat, but um, you know, I I say I'd technically be more likely to because I have no interest in learning the material. So I don't feel like I'm losing anything if I do cheat. You know what I'm saying?
right. Yeah, I think that all makes sense. So
Um,
making a third one.
yeah. I don't know. Is there one that you think is the best option?
I mean, I think it was using them as steps, so it's like use the best of all of them.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's valid. I think one thing with the whole thing of like um changing it completely. So like that school I was talking about in Asia, right? Like that would work really well, but the problem is that that would require a change of like the American school system as a whole, right? We would have to like completely rework the entire grade school system from the ground up. And I guess that would, if we did completely change how school worked entirely, then that could lead to better results. But I think what we should focus on more is just like what can our schools do, right? Like if Ignite, they do things that most schools don't. Like our internships or our YLPs and things, right? But they still have to fit within the guidelines of like the Kentucky laws and the U.S. laws. So I guess theoretically we could just change the Kentucky and U.S. laws, but like that's not really that feasible. I want to focus more on solutions that like next year, our administration staff could be like, oh, let's do that, right? Um, so in that case, I think project-based learning is better. Um, Also, the second one on here is just don't do that. But the first one on here is the learning, not grades. I think a gradeless class is a really good idea. I'm very supportive of that idea. But um, I think the problem with that is that it just depends on how it's implemented. And like I said, that would be tough because that doesn't really fit within our current guidelines. Like the one thing that our professors having to do in our English class is still give us a grade at the end of the semester because that's the rules. We have to have a grade by the end. Uh,
All right, you want to start that whole part over? All right. So there are a few things that I think we can generally do to help us understand how to solve this problem. I think the first part we need to do is focus more on the learning and less on the grades because that encourages making sure that they actually learn something which they can't cheat their way into.
Number 2, project-based learning. If we use projects instead of memorization, we can learn more things. And it's harder to cheat because we're measured on our actual learning and not the accuracy.
Right. And 3, if possible, enforcing the best.
My mic is swinging. There we go.
So quickly, I would like to address some counter arguments. Obviously, the biggest thing is you can't just change the entire school system that easily. And I think
Well, I don't know that that's entirely true. Like I was saying, okay, yeah. So, yes, it is hard to change the school system overall, in America, like I was just saying. But just to change like Ignite's rules or like Ryle High School's rules, we can keep Boone County the same, but maybe like Cooper High School. Um, the administration can just change it, right? Mr. Gales said he wanted to like our YLPs, right? Our YLPs have to in computer science, our YLPs have to be games, websites, or apps. Mr. Gales wanted our boy Adam Young to make an arcade machine, and even though Adam still has not made that arcade machine, he was just like, "Hey, I make the rules, right?" And so Adam didn't have to make a website, game, or app for his YLP. His YLP was the arcade machine. So if Mr. Gales can do that, make a whole YLP system, which doesn't happen in Boone County, and do the internship thing, right, for the seniors, that's awesome. If he can do all that, surely he can just change our education system. Not that that's easy to do. He would have to do a lot of thinking, figuring stuff out. But it's certainly possible to just change from a small scale.
Right, and the YLP idea as a whole is kind of what we were talking about with being serious or something.
Yeah, totally, because, if you make a game, right, it's not like, oh, did you check these boxes? It's just, did you make a game? Did it work? Did you code? Because some people didn't code. Did you actually make your YLP? Because some people didn't. So, I guess it's still technically possible to, use ChatGPT to make our websites or apps or games. That's a valid count. That's a counter argument right there, that it doesn't.
That project-based learning doesn't really work?
Yeah, but like I said, that's pretty situational, and at the very least, it just, it de-incentivizes it, I guess, because I imagine most of the people who are here in computer science actually want to be here and want to code and make games and whatnot, because, why else would you be here? So at that point, it's well, then you're just hurting yourself, right? That's the biggest thing with cheating. You're just hurting yourself. It's just, it doesn't help you except, it helps you in the short term, but it's not going to help you in the long run. So if children are actually here to learn about computer science and then they cheat on their YLPs with ChatGPT, that's not good, right? It's not good for them, even if they'll get the grade. But also, part of our YLPs is during our presentation, we have to show that we have an understanding of the code. So if we don't have an understanding of the code, then we don't get a good grade. Right. And now I'm just realizing that we can have ChatGPT give us got this part. Well, no, go back to the perfection. It's hard to do.
So I think generally speaking, it's impossible to achieve a perfect solution, right? So we can address the problem the best we can, and we can offer solutions, but we can't offer a solution that will work 100% of the time, because where there's a will, there's a way. People will find a way to cheat.
Yeah. Yeah.
In any situation, I think that you will have.
Do you not want me to say that?
No, I don't want you to say your name's Isaac Content. All right. So that's the ChatGPT issue, how we can try to solve it, and what we need to do to avoid the issue. And, so I think that's a good time to wrap up. What do you think we got?
Thank you for coming to my presentation. All right, you got it up. I just think that I would love to get ratatouille'd.
Ratatouille'd?
Have a little guy up there.
Excuse me?
Making me cook delicious meals.
No, I understand. I've seen the film.
You wouldn't want that? A little guy pulling your hair, making you cook?
It's a ridiculous concept.
You're telling me you wouldn't want that?
I just don't know why you're bringing it up as if it's something that could actually happen.
You wouldn't want a little ratatouille guy up there doing whatever?
It's honestly insane that a rat would even be able to cook in the first place.
He doesn't have to be cooking.
In the movie, he's cooking.
Yeah, but in this scenario, though, he can do other stuff.
But you called it Getting Ratatouille. I mean, the movie is about cooking. Why call it Getting Ratatouille if the rat isn't even going to be making you cook? I don't need a rat to help.
You're hung up on the cooking thing.
You're the one who referenced food.
Forget what I said.
You called it Getting Ratatouille, which is a reference to cooking in the first place.
Forget what I said. Ratatouille is just a frame of reference.
It's just
you can get ratatouille into doing other stuff.
It's just important to remember that words mean things.
Yeah, but I mean...
The word ratatouille has implications about cooking.
It's just easier to call that. It's a ratatouille situation.
Words mean things.
Listen, if there's a little guy up there, like a rat on your head, it's a ratatouille. Even if you're not cooking.
Okay. For this conversation, we can call it Getting Ratatouille, but I think moving forward, we should establish a different terminology.
Okay. I just want to know if you would want to get ratatouilled.
Yes. I think.
Why are you laughing all the time?